just want to welcome everyone, friends, neighbors, new faces. Thank you for coming this evening. This is a full house, and it speaks volumes. It reminds me of the quote from Rachel Carson, "In nature, nothing exists alone." We are a community of 300 miles of shoreline and 10,000 plus acres of protected land. We value beauty here in Door County, and we protect what we value politically, civically, and socially. But we're also a community filled with many creative voices that engage in social and environmental issues, which I believe is why this body of work has gathered us all together here tonight. We're gathered all here tonight to support Mary Burns and her vision. An award-winning weaver, multi-media artist, author, educator, entrepreneur, internationally trained. Her work has been exhibited and it is held in private collections from coast to coast. But she's still a grounded human being. She is deeply rooted in Wisconsin. She resides in her grandparents' house, nestled in the North Woods. And she works closely with her family in her art and in life. Her love of her love of nature has been foundational in her work. Artistically, she celebrates nature's bounty, and nature has been given a voice within her work. Welcome, Mary Burns.
Thank you.
Right now we're going to talk about your background and your studio practice.
Okay.
Just to kind of give you an idea. And Mary's located up in Mercer, Wisconsin, which is straight north of Wausau, close to the border.
100 miles north of Wausau.
There we go. And clearly you had a relationship with water and nature your entire upbringing.
This is true.
Fill us in. What was going on as little Mary was growing up?
So I grew up in Wausau, but my grandparents lived in the Mercer area. And so we were up at Grandpa and Grandma's every chance we got. And I loved it. I mean, when John and I eventually got married and decided to move there, it was like coming home. I've been on the Manitoush River for my entire life, and I learned to swim as a little kid in the Manitoush River, and that is where we live.
Oh, that's wonderful. And how does that speak to your work? Like, what do you draw upon? The water and the land and the woods.
So we're really, like you mentioned, we're really grounded in the North Woods, and I feel like the river flows through me. I feel really attached to the trees, and every day we go out somewhere doing something, hiking or paddling or bicycling or chasing our dog. And it's just such a special place.
Embedded in you.
It is, and it's really hard right now because the house, I think my grandparents bought this house. It was built in 1907, and they bought it in 22 or 23. And at that time, there was just a little road, there was the railroad, and that's why they wanted to be there near the railroad. And all this property that they had that was on either side of the Manitoush River. But now, there are two state highways that junction right where we live, and it's tarnishing our dreams there a little bit.
Wow, let's get back to something more positive. I know that you started at UWGV, but then you went on to study in a mentorship. Tell us about your Peter Collingwood, and then also your time at Montreal Center of Contemporary Textiles.
So if any of you are weavers, you probably have heard of Peter Collingwood. He was from the UK, and he actually studied to be a doctor and became a doctor, and much to his parents' dismay, he decided he really wanted to be a fiber artist, and he became this incredible weaver. And I took a week-long workshop with him here in the States, because he developed this technique that I wanted to use in my work. So I had started weaving in high school, and eventually found a niche in rug weight weaving. So I was weaving art for the floor, art for the wall, in heavy all wool or linen and wool pieces. And Peter developed a technique called shaft switching, where you can fool your loom into thinking it has more variety of components than it actually does. And I wove his technique for years, I mean, hundreds of rugs and wall pieces. And it gave me more control and more ability to do so many different things with that rug weight work.
Sounds like the best prescription you ever wrote.
Yeah, I think so.
So Jacquard weaving is central to your work. How does it enhance your storytelling? Because it seems like it's a really lovely pairing for you. They sing together, storytelling and weaving.
Yeah, and that is one of the reasons I went to Jacquard weaving, was because of the storytelling capability. That I could see things that I could weave more of a narrative and allow people to partake in that. So I had always looked towards more pictorial type of work with the shaft switching as well. And then I kept reading about some potential hand looms that were going to be created for hand weavers like myself. And eventually they became a reality.
That's exciting. And are you able to do this multi-strand mixing to achieve that? I believe you call it the right color.
Yes. So on my shuttles, which is what I throw back and forth on the loom, that's the weft. I have little bobbins on there, and I wind 2 to 4, maybe 5 strands of thread. They're, for those of you who are fiber people, they're generally a 22 weight or a 10-2 weight or a combination. So I would blend and will blend different shades, say of turquoisey blue, but just slightly different shades to get the right color.
I love that. Did everyone get that? She has a palette of bobbins that she makes color.
Yeah.
So blows my mind.
So,
I love that.
Yeah, these are woven with one shuttle of kind of a natural, maybe a little sepia toned yarns. And then I do full color pieces as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like photography. We're old school on us with sepia, and then you can cross the bridge and go in color. I love it. I had read somewhere that you are very much nature inspired. And I love this, that what was written is that you find there's green energy and also blue moods. And it refers to nature. So the green energy comes from the forest or the wild spaces. And then the blue moods come from Lake Superior, and I would imagine any other fresh water around you, including the river. And there must be little lakes up there too that you partake in. But think of our Great Lake, and then think of Superior. And for those of you who have traveled up to Lake Superior, we all know that Lake Superior is a different creature compared to our Lake Michigan. And it does have moods, and they're much darker up there. It's a completely different vibe than Lake Michigan. And so I feel that that it kind of makes me feel that your work tends to be on a little bit on the serious side. And I'm thinking, did Lake Superior influence you to be a little more serious in your work than possibly us Lake Michigan influenced individuals?
I don't know that I'm more serious in my work, but Lake Superior did influence me, does influence me. I love the Big Lake. She is the mother lake, the largest freshwater lake in the world by surface area. And
versus volume. You nerds out there that need to know the difference.
That would be Lake Baikal in Russia.
Yes. The lakes, our Great Lakes system is so fascinating, and it really does it is something so special. And when you hear of droughts in places, it's hard to even fathom it because we have so much water all the time. I was reading the driest places. This is what I Google while I'm drinking my coffee. It's like, what are the driest places in the world? And they receive less than an inch of water per year. And I think we received 10 times that last night. So it's hard. it's hard to imagine, life without water and the easy access to it, and then also the beauty that involves in water.
We're very blessed.
There's something that in The Life and Death of Great Lakes that was written by our Dan Egan here, and he said that in his book, a normal lake is knowable. A great lake can hold the mysteries of an ocean and then some. Do you feel that you've felt that in Lake Superior and being around it?
Lake Superior's a wonderful, beautiful, mysterious lake, and it's got so many moods, and the shoreline differs, there's South Shore, the North Shore. It's spectacular, and if you haven't done the trip around the lake, you should consider doing that. It's really worthwhile.
I have it planned, and in my journal it's called the Superior Road Trip.
So Lake Superior, and combined with all of the other Great Lakes, North American Great Lakes, contain 23% of the world's fresh water. Lake Baikal contains 22% of the world's fresh water. I think it's 22. And then the African Great Lakes are somewhere right in that ballpark.
So speaking of nerds, let's talk about your husband. Sorry.
My husband, John Bates.
Yes, you guys work together sometimes.
We collaborate.
Do tell. What's going on? What are you guys working on, and what have you worked on, and especially pertaining to this show?
For this show, I think a lot of the collaboration was John hearing me out and really supporting my decision to go forward with this, and brainstorming, well, what direction do we go? How do I pursue this? Because my initial vision was to weave portraits of water walkers from the general air region. And then I got to thinking that wasn't enough. A water walk is a sacred journey along or around a body of water to help raise awareness in the public for that body of water and how we need to protect it and conserve it. So water walks started with, it's a native tradition, but it's grandmother Josephine Mandamin, whose portrait is right through that door, who really brought that practice into commonplace. I don't know if it's commonplace, but into the public eye.
Is it a political statement, or is it something that is a combination of political and spiritual, or is it very old?
I don't think it's very.
What is the timeline for
It's a
this?
story. Grandmother Josephine started those walks in the early 2000s, I believe. And I did have someone tell me from Bad River that it was the Bad River tribe that actually that did the first water walk, but I kind of think it was historical before that, somewhat, but don't quote me on that, I'm not 100% sure. But it was grandmother Josephine that really started making that a spiritual journey, and I don't know if I would say political, but I would say environmental.
Awareness, to bring it to. And Sharon Day, who's the portrait here on this clip here, you started in the book, it says, we are not a protest, we are a prayer for the water. As an indigenous people, we believe water has a spirit. Is she a water walker as well?
She is. She's based in the Twin Cities. She has done led numerous walks. 2 years ago, they walked around Lake Superior. And she's done the length of not the Mississippi, I think that it's the Missouri that she's done, and various other walks. And she, I believe her organization called Maybe Walks. It's in the book. But she got to see the exhibit when they did the hike around Lake Superior.
Oh, that's lovely.
But grandmother Josephine walked over 15,000 miles for water in her lifetime.
Oh, I love that.
So there are water walks that happen here. Colleen who owns the Chief Oshkosh Gallery in Egg Harbor leads a water walk, so you could contact her. And then there's a water walk that happens annually around Lake Winnebago, and that is led by someone from Brotherton.
So, Women in Water, it's an accumulation of 7 years of work. And as you know, I gave you a little checklist here of questions, but just to share with the audience, I had asked in advance what inspired this project, how did it evolve over time, is it an ongoing project beyond the commission, and if yes, what do you have waiting in the room? So you can just kind of systematically, organically, just kind of like share with us, you know, that what you know, like, when I work on a project, and usually it gets kind of big, if I would have known how large it was going to get, I probably would have had a lot of hesitation. Do you find that same with your work? Do you kind of go into it and almost go in blindly, but with high ambition to make something that's really powerful, and then you realize that it's your responsibility to move even deeper into a work, to be able to make a body of work, to have it make a more fuller and more vast statement about what you're after? Is that what happened here, or is it?
Well, I didn't have a set timeline. I didn't have a set amount of portraits I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to have enough portraits that I felt that I was representing women from a large variety of backgrounds and globally. So the hardest thing was stopping. When I did that 29th portrait, it felt like I could have kept going. And I have not continued since that 29th piece was done, but I could, and that's what's also inspiring, because there are so many women doing incredible work and they all need to be honored.
Powerful.
And so it's not to say that I wouldn't leave more portraits of women doing water work and water advocacy, because there's so many worthy of being honored that way.
I just want to point out that we have fresh water, we have salt water, and with the fishermen there on that wall, we also have brackish water. So we kind of have like all the waters represented, unless that you can think of some more like variety of water that we have represented in the show. I think that covers the basis, but I just found that to be really exciting, because it feels like, you know, we're really freshwater based, but, and then people like say, oh, living on Lake Michigan or by Lake Michigan is probably like living by the ocean. And we're all just like, no, not at all. It's a completely different experience. But then living, I had the privilege of being in residency for 3 years in Miami, and through the NFAA, and I went down to the Everglades quite a bit, which is brackish water, which the saline content varies depending on tides and time of year, and especially when hurricanes blow in or they pull out, or, you know, like that kind of thing. So brackish water is really fascinating. And I just love the fact that you have that represented with, she saved your portrait of, I have it marked here somewhere, I have it under FL for Florida. Remind me of her name.
Marjorie Stoneman Douglas.
Yeah.
So many people are probably familiar with the name anyway. So Marjorie Stoneman Douglas was a journalist, and it was through her writing about the Everglades that the public started to put pressure on the government to set the Everglades aside. So she won the Presidential Medal of Freedom for that work many years later, and she was 103, I think. And she was wonderfully outspoken.
I love that. I think that we have so many lessons to learn from the women in this project. And you can veneer it to anything that you're passionate about. It doesn't necessarily have to be water or your environment. It could be anything. But the way that they approached things, and they did it with such grace and such elegance. But at the same time, she was like, you know, she just did not take no for an answer. She was just very like, no, this is what we're doing. And I love that. I love it when women are just quiet and strong, and they move forward and they get the job done. I love that. And can you tell us more about the project? How did you actually select, you said that there were so many, how did you actually select the individuals? Because there's really a wide variety, and some of them are historic, and some of them are living, and some have recently passed away. Yeah.
It was really a lot of research, and then trying to reach out to get permissions. So I tried to get permission for as many of the portraits as possible. Some people were really wonderful, easy to work with, like Sandra Postel. She's from the United States. She works to find natural solutions to water issues. She was fabulous to work with. She was like, oh, I'd be honored, and she sent me a whole bunch of pictures and information. And then, on the other hand, there would be someone like Dr. Sylvia Earle, who I knew I wanted to have in the exhibit. And she's been cutting edge research. She was the head of NOAA at one point. She's done all these things. But I contacted her agent several times, no reply. And then finally started contacting her foundation, which is Mission Blue. And eventually they replied, but it probably took 2 years to get permission. And then they wouldn't give me any pictures. That's true, I had to find a photographer who worked with her.
Tell us about Tinker Schumann. Oh, it seems like you have a really wonderful relationship with her.
I do. Tinker's become a dear friend.
It's just around the corner, but I will hold up the portrait that I'm speaking of. It has the eagle in the corner, and it's this portrait here. And it seems, and she is based here in Wisconsin. And there's a small picture of you and her wrapped in a blanket together. She's very lovely.
She is an elder from Lac du Flambeau, so she lives about 15 miles from us. And when I was weaving my earlier exhibit, The Ancestral Women in Wisconsin's 12 Tribes, I wove a portrait of an elder woman from each of the 12 Wisconsin tribes, and then another 12 complementary weavings that went with it. So when I was determining who to weave a portrait of for Lac du Flambeau, everyone said Tinker Schumann. So I got Tinker's phone number, and I must say, doing this work has made me more willing to contact people out of the blue, and I'm a much shyer person previously. So anyway, I called Tinker up, and she answers the phone. She's like, and she's teaching a class, and she answers the phone. And so now I feel really stupid because I called her in the middle of the class without what I've known. Anyway, we made arrangements to come over to her house. She said, come visit me. So a few days later, John went with me. I took 2 or 3 of the portraits that I had finished. She's this amazing elder in Lac du Flambeau. She's an educator, she's a poet, she's an artist. She is a community coordinator. Not coordinator is not the right word, but everybody looks to Tinker. So a healer. She does ceremonies. We've gone to different ceremonies at her house. Anyway, when we first met her, we went there, showed her these portraits. She was very interested. She said, come back next week. So we went back the next week, and we did she had a pipe ceremony for us. It was like, oh my God. And so we did this pipe ceremony, and she gave us her blessing to do her portrait, and since then she's become a very good friend. And she comes over for lunch, and we talk and have fun. And she's right now, she's advancing her spiritual levels right now.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
To be an active part of one of your subjects' lives is really, it's kind of the sweetness that happens when you're an artist and you work with other people. I love that.
She's the only person that is in both exhibits, but I really wanted her to be in this exhibit too.
So maybe she'll kick off your next one. I love that.
You never know.
Wonderful.
And the reason the eagle is in her weaving is I drew the eagle in because her name is McGeezy. She is Eagle Woman.
The eagle population here in York County has risen so high. We see eagles almost on a daily basis.
It has done that where we lived.
So you can share with your friend that every time now I'll look up at an eagle, I'll think of her.
So you should say Miigwech, McGeezy.
Which is easy. What am I saying before I say it?
Thank you. You're saying thank you to the eagle.
Oh, I love that. Well, that will be easy. So let's transition into nature stewardship and the whole idea of being a caretaker or an advocate of nature, or in this case, water. And I feel that this, if anything, this project is really deeply inspirational to be aware of our natural assets that we have. And I just wanted to ask, how do you envision a role of an environmental advocacy concerning water conservation? What kind of role can we play as just citizens with water? And how can we bring it into our daily lives?
I think that people should act locally and globally. I mean, I know that's a phrase people use, but I think it's really true. If you're located here, there is the freshwater, John, what is it? The organization you're involved with?
Clean Water Action Council.
Clean Water Action Council, John Hermanson. If you need to talk to somebody about it, he's the guy. He lives here in town. So find out what your local groups are that are supporting water advocacy, and support them. Volunteer. I mean, most of us are probably retired. Not me, but I told my husband, I am never retiring. I love what I do way too much. But I would start there, and it's going to lead you down a path that is really important. I mean, our water is essential.
You do have a few that are Midwestern based. They have, I believe it's Illinois and Wisconsin and Minnesota that are from some local. Do they have organizations that we can contact if we're interested in supporting them?
Yes, so in the back of the book, there's a whole list of places that you can follow up with to volunteer, to send money to support.
Especially within the native spiritual beliefs. What kind of intention have you come across in their cultures that they give to the water? Like we have, you shared with us with the eagles. What other kind of things have you come across that could elevate our experience of intention as we walk by the water?
Well, I wouldn't want to speak, for native cultures, not being native myself, but it seems to me that personhood, giving water its personhood, acknowledging that it is a being, I think is really important, and it has rights, and those rights should be protected.
So, you're an author. You've written a book, and you clearly have put together this.
I put together that, but John is the driving force behind the text.
But clearly this is, supportive materials in the art world is so, it's really part of an artistic practice, is writing about your work. And it also, diving deep with words, raises our awareness as artists. And, just obligatory, artist statements that we have to make, and, and putting things out there, and working with journalists.
And interviewers.
And what happens is you start forming this gel kind of comes together with your words, and it pairs so nicely. And I also feel that it expands our awareness of our own work, and it allows us to go to a higher plane. So the written word that's paired with the art is really powerful. But yes, you wrote a fiction book. Tell us about that.
So I wrote this a while ago when it went through various stages, and it's a book for middle grade students, and a lot of adults have read it too. And the story of a young girl who lives with her grandparents in the Northwoods of Wisconsin. And they need to save the trees. It's all about trees.
I wonder if our library has a copy.
I don't know, but I could arrange it.
Let's do. I love that. Sounds like something I read. I love teen fiction. It's a good read.
And a friend of mine did the illustration, so she's an amazing artist, and she illustrated the entire book, and we had a lot of fun with it.
So you've collaborated with this artist, you collaborated with your husband. Who else have you collaborated with?
I collaborate with my sister and daughter, and
Nancy and Kaylee. Callie.
Right.
Nancy and Callie.
So, would you like to show off your beautiful scarf? My sister and I just taught an eco-printing scarf,
Yes.
eco-printing class
Oh,
at the
gorgeous.
And Mary taught us how to do it. So we used plants. And she taught us how to lay the plants out, and they had the fabric already. And it was awesome to see her and her sister pair together to work and do this class. It was awesome. It was definitely a collaboration.
It was.
Yep.
Oh, that's
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for not being too worried about giving up.
No, not at all.
So,
Mary, tell about collaboration with middle school people. You've done, a lot of middle schools have taken that book and run with it.
so when I wrote that book, this award-winning teacher ended up moving into our area from somewhere down south. But she was originally, I think, from Wisconsin. And she loved the book so much that she collaborated with other educators in our very tiny little school. And they, along with myself, developed a curriculum guide for the book. And they involved all the different areas of study.
Wow.
So there's a curriculum guide available, and she's thinking of reviving it. But anyway, I worked with them, and then several years, I would go, they would take the, I think it was 8th graders, they would take them to Camp Manitowish for a retreat based around the book, and then they'd do all these activities, and I would go and I would do weaving with them or whatever.
Oh my
So
gosh, I want an adult version of this. Yeah. That's perfect. Summer
that
camp.
could happen someday.
Yeah, I would love that. That would be wonderful to hear. For those inspired by your work, how can they engage further? Like through workshops, or do you have a newsletter or a blog, or any kind of supporting water-related causes, like anything that you want to just give a little shout out for a workshop?
I teach on a fairly regular basis where we live. I teach generally at the local nature center. And I'll teach weaving, felting, eco-printing rarely because it's so involved. Do a lot of things like that. And it's a great way to introduce people to new ideas and give them new skills so they can experiment themselves.
And it allows like the outside world to melt away. And we've been working on something so beautiful like that, escaping to the clear. And will you be teaching next year? Do you think?
We don't know.
Yes. Kim, what do you think? I have no idea. I mean, we're only in
Work on
June.
it.
And it's not just shutting things out, it's also bringing things in. I mean, it's embracing the natural world.
Well, yes, well, which I'm thinking of, like, more of like the white noise of digital life.
Oh.
And I want to just kind of close that out and do something and check into something that's more powerful than that.
John and I are thinking of collaborating. We've collaborated before on things, but he's been writing about trees a lot and he's got a whole book on trees, but he's been giving presentations and such, and I've been thinking about creating an exhibit with trees at the bases.
Wow.
So, way too many ideas, but
Speaking my language, yes. I love trees as well. And then speaking of other venues, I saw online that you are going to be in Kenosha at that museum there.
at the Kenosha Museum. So we will pick up this exhibit and take it as well as the complete Ancestral Women exhibit to Kenosha after this closes at the beginning of August. And both exhibits will be in their own galleries. And it opens August 16th, the reception's August 17th, and it runs through November. So if you know anyone, or if you're passing that way.
So the goodness continues. Congratulations. Very nice.
So it sounds like you get several pictures to choose from for each portrait you choose to do, is that correct?
It depends on,
Okay. But they're fabulous, they're mind-blowing, it's just amazing, and I don't have to ever understand it to know that they are fantastic. But, so you are the one that chose the picture to weave, the portrait to weave, is that correct?
out of whatever I've been given.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious about two of them
Okay.
that have, and they're wearing logoed shirts, like Levi's, and I think that's Adidas. I'm not sure what that, I think it's Adidas. So I was just curious about that being in these fabulous portraits of water people who are working on water for everyone like that. I don't know. Is there a reason why those logos are in there? I mean, other than it's on their shirt, could you not have woven that in there?
I could have redrawn and taken that out.
Uh-huh.
But those three portraits are of the young African women in science. And John and I met with them in 2022. So every year, this ACARE organization, it's the African Center for Aquatic Research and Education. Every year they sponsor a cohort of African women in science. So John and I had the privilege of meeting their 2022 cohort. They were in the United States for research projects and to attend an international conference on freshwater ecology, which was attended by over 3,000 people in 57 countries. And I knew they were coming, so I contacted the group and arranged ahead of time for us to have time to meet with these young women. They were fascinating, and they all work on the African Great Lakes, which is 7 different Great Lakes in Central Africa. And it's, like I said earlier, it's something like 22% of the world's fresh water. It's just an unbelievable network. And some of the women are in fisheries, some of them are freshwater ecologists. There's one that's a meteorologist. And they came to the United States, and many of them had never, I would say the vast majority, probably all, had never been here before. And I wanted to represent them how they were. So they were at this conference, and they were each presenting papers. And I actually had this idea that they would decide amongst the 9 of them if they liked the exhibit, which they did really like the exhibit, that one of them would become the face of their organization in the exhibit. Well, they all wanted to be in the exhibit.
Well, yeah.
And I wanted to honor that. So I did 3 portraits with 3 of the women in each, so there's one here.
There's a triangle of them right here.
So, yes, I thought they deserve it. The work that they're doing and what they're up against is enormous. And, yeah, I'm very proud of them. I don't have a right to be proud of them because I don't, who am I in their lives? But we loved meeting them and hearing their stories. And I mean, one afternoon we just sat around in the gallery and talked. And it's just like, their lives are so different than my life. And it was wonderful. Yes.
Do you ever still weave with a traditional loom, non-jacket?
Yes, I have.
And what do you do with those?
So the most I do on a non-Jacquard loom is small tapestries. But I do still have one of my rug looms. It's an 8-foot cranbrook with a shaft switcher. And I kind of wish it was a little smaller because I can weave narrower on it, but it's a big loom and that's all manual. And when I am weaving on it, it's a lot of work. I did get rid of my 10-foot rug loom, which is good. Now I have more space to do eco printing, interesting. So yeah, I'm still dabbling, but I have to say that Jacquard weaving is like, it's so captivating. There's so much to learn. I swear, every time I start to do design work or I start to weave on it, I'm learning something new. And I feel like the possibilities are endless. And out of all the possibilities, maybe I've gotten this much into it, and there's so much to explore. So now I've started doing some brocade, where I'm weaving with the shuttle, the entire background or shuttles, and then highlighting colors like I just did pileated woodpeckers.
Oh.
So the woodpecker is in black and white, and then the crest is in different shades of red, and the eyes are orange. And I brocaded those in. The only problem with brocade is I have to weave it upside down. So I can't see, take my phone and I hold it under there. I can't see the actual piece
Right,
until it's done.
right.
I do it from the back, so it's wonderful though, it's so exciting.
So that kind of covers what you're what you're up to now.
Yeah, I've got a whole list of things.
Yeah.
Birds.
I love the birds.
I do a lot of birds, and some full color pieces. Gretchen has one of my full color pieces. So I'm weaving those with anywhere from 3 to 7 shades of color. And then the brocade's just frosting on the cake. But those are harder to do because those many shells and then trying to do the brocade upside down. It's kind of crazy.
Before we close here, I just want to read the dedication from her book. It's very lovely. Dedication is, to my mom and all the grandmothers before me, to my sisters, to my daughters, and of course to my incredible husband, John Bates. To all the women working for water,